February 20, 2024. This is the S&P 500E futures mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is what the chart looked like today. There was no economic data to really move the market. In the pre-market, it looked like it just kind of sold off in what I believe was kind of one big leg here. And then it chopped sideways. There were smaller legs in between, but I would say most of the price action in regular trading hours happened within about a 30-point range. And even then, it's not the full 30 points because this, if you drew the 30-point range, it looks something to this effect from here to here. But as you can see, there wasn't really, it's not a reliable range because it didn't really touch the bottom too many times. There were sub-ranges. Overall, I only took one trade today, which is right here. In hindsight, I don't think it was the best trade to have taken, but in real time, I thought it was decent. But always in hindsight, you get a better analysis of how you did. I also saw several setups throughout the day that were second entries, but they weren't worth taking for one reason or another, whether it's the signal bar wasn't good, it was in the middle of nowhere, or the setup just wasn't clean enough for one reason or another. But they were second entries, and some of them actually look like they would have worked out. But I'm okay not taking those just because it doesn't fit my criteria. So if I took it, and it worked, I would have felt like, oh, I'm a genius. But then I think that would have kind of invited some bad habits, which I'm always trying to hammer out. It'd probably make me bend the rules more than I should. And I don't think I currently have the experience to really have the intuition to know whether those setups were truly worth taking or they were just kind of something that I thought I saw, because even though the volume today was decent, there weren't very many clean second entries that I could find. So I'm going to get into trades now. Let's see. So in the pre-market, and we're just coming off a big holiday weekend as President's Day. This was yesterday. I don't bother trading President's Day or any other holiday because even though you technically can trade futures, the stocks are closed, the trading is very slow. So I'm definitely not going to go through the effort to try to find a trade in here when you can just wait for the next day. But I also know after a holiday weekend, sometimes the trading is a little bit sparse. So in the pre-market, prices opened and they kind of just chopped around whipsaw. I'm not around at my desk to actually take these trades, but I did see this right at the open, and I'm going to kind of go through it. There's like three setups, and whether there's a setup there or not, whether you took one of these, I didn't, just because these candles all formed in the first minute right at the open. And I did see this, but I didn't fully analyze or understand everything I was seeing until maybe like over here when I was looking back and I kind of read what I kind of re-examined what I thought I saw. So in the pre-market, there was clearly some kind of trading range happening here. I was thinking maybe this was a little bit higher at one point, but once this touched so many times down here, I dragged it down to here to kind of have this touch, and this touch, and I like this a lot better. I did see a new high here, say first entry long, pullback, second entry long. Now this second entry long isn't a very good signal bar, but it's potentially coming from a fail breakout. So when you see this in real time, you don't think of going long just yet because this isn't indicating to me at least that I should get a trade ready. So here clearly you have a first entry long, second entry long. Now the second entry long is confirmed. This wasn't a good signal bar, but you're thinking potentially this is a fail breakout, bottom of the range. I was looking at it and I was thinking, okay, well, maybe there's going to be a higher low that comes up. You get your higher low. This is a decent setup for a higher low because it pushed below the previous. You could argue it kind of bounced off the bottom of the range and engulfed it, and it's pushing back up. EMA doesn't really matter at this point because prices aren't respecting it at all. It's above and below. So this might have been an entry here. What I didn't like is this is the first 13 seconds. So I myself wasn't ready to take this trade. The prices move, and then you have a second entry short here. But this second entry short looks like it's about to fail because you pushed one tick down and now it's reversing back up. Made two attempts down, and it looks like it is truly bouncing off the bottom of this range and pushing to the other side. So I think this higher low could have been a trade. And if you missed it, potentially this failed second entry short, which technically hasn't failed yet, could have been an entry. And here it fails and moves. Definitely I would have, if I didn't take it here and have my order entered here, I definitely would just have skipped it. The thing is, I saw this and I skipped it completely because remember, this is all these four candles are happening in very quick succession. This is just still within the first minute of regular trading hours. So if I were more aggressive or I had a better read or I had just more experience, maybe I would have taken this one or perhaps this one. I doubt I would have been ready or wanting to take this one. Prices move up, pushes to the top of the range. You have a potential fail breakout. It looks like it's coming back down. It's breaking through this green channel. It pushes back up, and it looks like I made one attempt up, maybe a second attempt up. Now this is a first entry long, second entry long. I kept in mind that this is the top of this potential trading range, coming from a failed breakout, two attempts up. It tried to push up to the green, but it's coming from an overshoot. This red down channel doesn't exist yet, so this doesn't exist. Ignore it for now. So there's no key entry point there to treat it as some kind of rejection. But I saw this, then it continues the second entry long, but now it's showing that sellers are truly coming in. And when it flashes down, I'm thinking there's a possible trade here, but I don't know that I would have taken it on the engulfing. I probably would have waited to see what happens here because I don't want this to have one tick down and then push up. And so when it opened right where it was and it just kind of bouncing around, I would probably have waited for this to close and then take the entry. But when it closed, I kind of lost my nerve. So I said, well, I don't, had this just been a little bit cleaner setup, like it didn't close so far down already, then clearly you still have enough room to the bottom, but now you're kind of pushing and approaching the midline. So for just a number of reasons, I just didn't really want it to take this trade, but I think this is a possible trade right here. Looks like it would have worked though. Prices then continue down. It goes on this green channel. I don't see anything particularly great to take. It's a first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short here. So it's a first entry short, second entry short here as soon as it broke below. And here it's a second entry short failure. So it looked like it was a push in the green channel. One attempt down, second attempt down. It failed. I wasn't ready to take this trade. Perhaps if it was also a stronger green candle here for a signal bar, then I would have thought, okay, maybe it's first entry long, second entry long. But it kind of closed a little neutral, so I didn't have my order ready. It bounced around and it didn't really close strongly up here either. So as I was watching this, I wasn't 100% sure. So I didn't think there was a trade there. It looks like if you did get in on the long, and if you were thinking potentially going short, you would have been sitting through this. And if you went long, depending on where you took your entry, you could still be sitting through this, or you could have gotten your quick scalp. So I'm glad I didn't take this because it just wasn't clean enough for me. It looks like it's chopping. At first, I thought the trading range was something a little bit higher. I thought it was actually up here. I thought it was a tighter trading range. Then it broke out. I'm thinking this is a failed breakout. It's moving back in. It's respecting the highs here. So at this point, my trading range was something like this. I did see a second entry short here. It's a new low. It's a first entry short pullback. I was thinking there's a potential second entry short setting up right here. It's at the top of the range. It's a possible failed breakout. I need to see what happens on this next signal bar. And it's a good signal bar. So I thought this potentially could be a trade. Now you could argue maybe there's one test, two tests, maybe a triple test, but the triple test just didn't look that clean. When I saw this, I said I want to wait for a lower high to confirm prices are really coming back down. Because after this closed, per my original trading range, it looks like I don't have much room. So it looks like it would have worked. The lower high does show up here. I didn't like this signal bar though. It's a little too doji-ish for me, so I had to skip it. It's kind of what I called an almost setup because it does confirm the first entry short, second entry short, lower high, but the signal bar just wasn't good. I don't like it when it's kind of a doji. It shows that one side really isn't dominating because they open and close right at the end. So the next candle still could be pretty choppy. Then pushes down, and when it hit this bottom part, that's when I extended this trading range, which I'm going to delete now. I made it into a larger one, so I thought, okay, this is the midline, fits relatively well. This could be the bottom of the larger trading range. Right now, I also notice it's starting to obey the EMA, or starting to respect the EMA as a potential resistance. This is just choppy. I don't like this side by side right now because it's just too tight. Prices then continue down. It touches a third time, but when I saw this, there's no plan to take a long because you think you can triple test, potentially move back up, but there's no setup. There's nothing to tell you that prices are coming back up. If anything, it's showing you a bearish downtrend now. At this point, I did somewhere around here when this was printing, I did draw this as a potential red down channel because it fit nicely here and it fit nicely up here. And had I seen this earlier, then this failed second entry long up here, something I might have taken, but I unfortunately didn't have this drawn at the time. I did have some other channels drawn, something like this, kind of trying to make things touch, but I didn't really quite have that one established at that point. And there's no reason that I probably could have had this drawn, but again, this setup, unfortunately, I just didn't have it. It wasn't on top of my game to see it. And prices break through, start shopping. I don't see anything particularly that I like. It's a new low. It's a first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short here, but I don't like the signal bar because first entry short, pullback, second entry short it's a pretty bearish signal bar, but if it just closed red, then I think I would have had my order ready to take it right here. But unfortunately I didn't. So we'll solve this as a new high. It's a first entry long, pullback. This is a second entry long. This is actually where I take my first trade. When I saw this, I saw first entry long, first entry short, second entry short. Which is the bias? Right now, I did see a triple test here. 1 attempt up, 2 attempt, 3 attempt. Prices probably want to push back down. So when this candle formed, I waited for it to break below this one first. It broke below, and it was actually dancing and oscillating down here. So I actually put my order late, near the end of this candle. And so actually, I didn't get it on the way down. I got it on the way up. When this floated back up and closed up here, that's where I got my entry. And I kind of regretted that because when it was dancing out here, it still didn't make my 1 point profit scalp yet. It did. I didn't cancel my order. It came back up, picked me up. So I thought I'm probably going to get stopped out now because the way I saw it is this trading range, it touched the bottom. It's probably going to oscillate sideways some more. Probably might float up, maybe break above here, stop me out, or just continue upwards. I wasn't sure. So I wasn't feeling that great about this trade at the time after I entered. Well, before I entered, I thought, it was going to close down here or it was going to pick me up and close down here, but I entered the trade on that candle moving up, which, kind of an instant grit. I was lucky. It came down, and as you can see, the lows is right where I got out. And I was actually pretty fortunate because the next few candles definitely would have stopped me out. So I thought I was doing something great by entering at the lows of this candle, which is right here. And I was going for my quick 1 point scalp here. It flashed down. I thought the trade was going to be done. I should have canceled it. Came back up, picked me up here. Next candle, opened here, kind of lucked out, got the exit right here, and then pushed back up. Now, if I had been later in the trade or there were more traders doing what I was doing, I don't know necessarily that my order would have gotten picked up. So this is kind of definitely a lucky trade, not a good trade. Prices then continue moving. I do notice that it touches this red channel. I think my red channel was a little bit off, a little bit higher than I dragged it just to deliberately make it touch here, and it still touched reasonably well there. Prices then continue moving. You have a new high, first entry long. Technically, you have a second entry long here, but this is one of many second entry longs, and there's just no clean setup. It's also pushing against the EMA. So you're thinking, maybe I'll take a long here, but the signal bar is terrible. But then you definitely don't think, I'm going to think of it as going a failed second entry long, go short, because it doesn't have enough information yet. Prices then continue moving. It breaks out of the red channel now. It moves up on this yellow channel. There's no clean second entries that I like. Prices then continue moving up. You have a new high at the break of this side, first entry long. You technically get a second entry long here, but it's below the EMA now. I don't like this setup. It's pushing down this way. The green downtrend wants to test its low, but you also have a conflicting idea of maybe the yellow trend wants to test its high. So it's a little confusing which bias is going to win out. So I had to leave it alone. It chops around, and this is where it creates two key entry points. So technically, the new high, it's a first entry long pullback, second entry long. Technically, you have a new localized high. Count resets, first entry long pullback, second entry long. I also have a new low, first entry short, second entry short. So this second entry short failed second entry long. There is kind of an almost trade. There's no way that I know of that I would have known to take an entry other than just guessing, because this signal bar for second entry short is terrible. Deciding to go long off of this good signal bar is great, except, as I said, is this going to test this low? It completed it here, but is it going to test this high? pushed up once. This could be the second push up. So it already tried a second time, and then it's debatable where it wants to push up even more. So it was a little confusing for me after this signal bar closed, after this signal bar occurred and this bar closed. I felt the trade was too late. So it was kind of, I would say, potentially at the top of this range. It's conflicting on whether it's going to continue downwards or continue upwards. It was sideways. Just a whole host of things made me second guess, and I just didn't like the setup. I did mark it though, just so for my own knowledge that when I see these more in the future, just don't, I guess, don't feel the anguish in over analyzing something like this and just leave it alone. Prices then continue moving. I saw one push up, pull back, second push up, then new low. It's a first entry short. This is a really good signal bar for a second entry short. It's below the EMA. You have two legs down now, but when I saw this, I thought, okay, well, it is a decent second entry short potential. I want a higher low. So it closed, it formed my second entry short. So it's confirmed second entry short, but I don't like the way this signal bar is already reversing and pushing back up. So when I saw this, I said, it's still below the EMA. EMA might be respected. It made two legs up. It could be another push down, but I needed a lower high confirmation. I get the lower high, and I thought this is actually a decent setup than a possible trade because it confirms a second entry short. It does have the EMA rejection, and it engulfed this previous bar. The only thing that would have made it even more fantastic if this bar right here, this green one, had closed red. Had that happened, I think I would have believed the confirmation of this first entry short, second entry short, because this would have been a good signal bar followed up by a good trigger bar, and I probably would have entered some time in this candle. Plus, the lower high would have given me even more confidence. But unfortunately, it didn't quite happen, and it would have just been based on the strength of this candle, which I didn't take. Then prices continue moving down, hops around, breaks. The green channel continues back down. It has a new high. It's a first entry long, second entry long is a bad signal bar. It's below the EMA. It doesn't look like it's anything worth taking. It's new low, first entry short, second entry short. Second entry short failure. This is a good failure, except previously the EMA has been acting as some kind of resistance. So to take this trade on a failed second entry short, since it's below the EMA, there's no trade there. I would need a higher low, and you don't get a higher low. And so it just kind of keeps chopping around. It hits some kind of resistance here. It wasn't quite a trading range, but I thought there's might be some kind of resistance being respected here because it kind of made a triple test at this point. It created a new low here. So first entry short, technically you have a second entry short right when it broke below this red candle. But the way it broke and then closed up high, it could be a failed second entry short, but it's also right around where this resistance was. So if this was potentially a trading range, this could be a failed breakout. So it's a little confusing. I had to leave it alone. Pops around, and even if you took it, it's debatable whether you would have gotten a scalp or not. Most likely not, and most likely you would have gotten stopped out here. At least I know I would have. It's a new high. It's a first entry long, second entry long. Second entry long is a terrible second entry long, and it looks like it could be a failed second entry long, moving back within this resistance, potential trading range, but I didn't draw the other leg yet because there's no clean matching bottom. Didn't like it. Prices then continue moving. It just kind of gets noisy. It's a new high. It's a first entry long, second entry longs right here, but there's no indication to take the long here. Even if you drew the channel, which I did at one time, it looks something like that. It just wasn't very clean. It broke out, made a new low. Suddenly think I'm going to reverse this trade based upon no real support, was a long stretch. The prices continue moving up. It gets choppy again. I don't really like what I see. It's a new high. It's a first entry long. This is a second entry long here, but at this point in time, there's no indication to even get a trade ready. It made a measurable move, but this had to have closed a little bit higher. And of course, then it flashes up, and you don't know that this is going to happen. So if you took it a second entry long and you got this, I think it was more, would have been out of luck than based off of good chart read, because the second entry long is also forming kind of in the middle of nowhere. But I did see this. I saw this as a new high. It's a first entry long pullback. And I was watching this in real time. I said it pushed below and it also pushed above and it finally closed here. So I thought this is a first entry long, hidden second entry long. So new low, first entry short, second entry short, second entry short has failed. So it's second entry long hidden, second entry short that failed. Both of them to tell you to go long. The thing I didn't like about this setup in general is it's just kind of if you look at this, this is just kind of chopping sideways in the middle of nowhere. There's no clean trading range that you can really establish. Like, where is the bottom? The top is debatable, and the bottom is kind of noisy. So, and the EMA isn't helping at all because prices are moving both above and below the EMA. So there's no key entry point. You only really have two. This yellow up channel I didn't have established yet. And if I did draw this trend line, which I did later, there's no other point above here. So this is too early to trust it. So there's just nothing here. And it was kind of frustrating because the whole day it felt like I was seeing a bunch of those type of setups, whereas second entries, but they all looked a little bit odd. They weren't quite clean in one reason or another. And then when you do get a higher low, it's too far away from the setup now. You're potentially running into maybe some kind of resistance, so you definitely had to leave it alone. The prices continue moving up. Again, you have a new high, first entry long, second entry long, too far from the EMA. It's a good signal bar, but it's just kind of in the middle of nowhere. Prices then look like it's in this trading range again. The new high, first entry long, second entry long. This is a pretty mediocre signal bar. Nothing here would have told me to go long. Then seeing this, nothing is telling me to go short either because you have new high, first entry long, second entry long failure, but this failure is potentially running into some kind of support. So definitely didn't like that. Again, it chops around, does kind of a lot of squirrely things. It breaks out, goes to the bottom, breaks out of the green down channel, makes a new low. So you're thinking the downtrend has played out, but now it's kind of below the EMA. EMA is starting to point downwards, so it's a little confusing on what to do. It flashes up, creates this big candle, and it's creating like a new low, first entry short, second entry short failure. But here, it hasn't failed yet. Here, it finally does fail, but then it's a little bit, uh, at least for me, unclear what prices want to do. And it's just kind of going into the end of the day, last 10 minutes. And so, kind of how I saw the charts today, it was not the easiest, most obvious trading. There were a lot of areas that I felt like if you took the second entries, the setups weren't clean, and it looked like some of them would have worked out and some of them would not have worked out, but definitely not high probability. And if you took every single one of them, I think it would have, for me, it would have delayed my mastering of the strategy because I think half of them would have worked out and the other half would have failed. And I would have just been super frustrated on why I even took the ones that failed. But then I would debate on the ones I took, whether they were actually good or not. So in all, I think it was better that I, kind of passed on a bunch of those. So trading today, it it was tricky in that I guess it's they just created several setups that were just almost there but not quite, and the not quites were strong enough for me to just sit on the sidelines. So hopefully that was helpful.